Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? I'm Chantel Chand, and the Raiders are on a bye week, but that doesn't mean that there isn't any news. Will there be some changes? Will there be some trades? We're going to talk about all that on today's show with Q Meyers and Lincoln Kennedy.
Raider Nation, Professor Kennedy here. Look, the Raiders can actually get a win this week. It's called a bye. You can't lose on a bye. But we're hoping that they can make some changes so they can finish this rest of the season strong. We'll talk about it next.
How am I supposed to follow that up? How am I supposed to follow that up? Oh, man, winning on the bye week. No, really, the Raiders can find their identity. They need to find their identity during the bye week. The coaches need to get together. We'll talk about that as well on the Raider Squad show. Let's do it.
Raider Nation, it's time. This is the Raiders Squad. Everything Las Vegas Raiders every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Death Star in the desert. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Commitment to excellence starts here. The Raiders Squad Show starts now.
Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? Remember, if you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media channels. You'll see in the description below the ways that you can connect with us. Also, we just want to say thank you so much for listening to us, for making this your first listen of the day, whether it was Q's Locked On Raiders or the Squad Show or both. We do appreciate you helping the channel grow. You can obviously also find us on the audio side if you're catching this on YouTube. So wherever you find your shows, podcasts, we're there too on the audio side. Leave a rate and review. Because why wouldn't you? Lincoln Q are on the show. That means it's one of the best shows because the guys are on it. So leave a rate and review, give a 5-star. And before we get started on everything on the docket today, this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward Mazda Move and Be Moved. And as I was mentioning, lots to get to. In the final segment, Link and Q are going to be answering some of your questions, taking some of your comments. So please drop them in the chat now if you are watching this on YouTube. But also, we're going to talk about some trade rumors, some guys that might possibly be up for trades, or maybe some guys that the Raiders might want to get. And we're also just going to be talking about, Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, and what they've done so far before the bye week. But before we get into all of that, we got to get into, some news and roster updates. And, this came earlier in the week as well, but the Raiders did sign guard Layden Robinson and wide receiver DJ Turner to the practice squad. Now, Pete's been doing this, all season long. You guys have talked about how many cuts he made and changes he made while he was in Seattle. Just based off the two guys that they signed to the practice squad. Q, were there any thoughts on that, considering it is a bye week?
No, they're just continuing to tinker with the roster, right? That's what head coach Pete Carroll is going to do, and they should continue to do that. And welcome back, DJ Turner. I mean, that's a guy, if you want to try to find any specifics to put your finger on, hey, what are they trying to do here? He's a special teams ace. He's a guy that has really excelled with the Raiders before in the special teams, in the return game, and even as a gunner. So with the special teams continuing to get a little bit better, you saw it the last time out and last couple games. Matter of fact, it's been better than it was early. He will help in that area. As far as the guards, they had just rotated in what McClendon Curtis had returned as being an undrafted free agent. They moved on from him. So they're just seeing what fits. They're trying to bring guys in, and they're trying to figure things out. And I know Raider Nation doesn't want to hear when they're sitting there at 2-7, like trying to figure things out. But that's literally what they're doing. They're trying to figure out what fits and what doesn't fit.
Just like when it comes to us working together, there's a certain chemistry that the team needs, and you're fiddling around with it in different players, hoping that somebody might be able to provide a spark if they're out there playing football. And I don't really put too much credence into this time of year besides the trading block. I think that's the big one. And I don't know if the Raiders are going to be buyers or sellers during the trading block or during the trading time, but they've made these little small moves. Really doesn't really affect me, and especially during the bye week.
Yeah, and there may be some trades, and we will talk about whether or not the Raiders are buyers or sellers. Based off the record, you would think they might be sellers, but they might be buyers. We're going to get into that in the next segment. Before we do all of that, it is the bye week, so now it's the perfect time to assess the team, and they're coming off, a game where they were shut out. All of Raider Nation was upset. You guys were upset. It was a very tough game to watch, and it hurts even more, and it sucks even more because it was against the Chiefs. And Link, I know how much you dislike the Chiefs, but when you talk about identity, and this is something that I feel the Raiders have been trying to figure out for like 20 plus years, to be honest with you guys, because there's only been so much success, right? There was like the Derek Carr year, they went to the playoffs, he got injured. We know how that went. And then, after COVID, they were able to make the playoffs, but obviously no playoff win. So the identity of the Raiders, I feel like, has always been changing along with their coaches, along with the players, and there hasn't been a lot of success. So my question to you is, at this point, they brought in Pete, they brought in Tripp, it was talking about like a new regime. They brought in Geno. It hasn't gone well. What is the current identity of the Raiders? We'll go with you first, Q.
I don't know what the identity is. The problem is I get upset by that because it is week 7. Well, they've already played 7 games. It's week 8 and they're in the bye and they don't have their identity yet. And I thought with this staff that you would know what their identity was going to be, especially when you go out and you bring in Pete Carroll. We know what he's done in the past at different stops. You go out and draft a running back at Ashton Genty, number 6 overall. You're going to try to replicate what you did in Seattle. You're going to try to run the ball downhill. You're going to try to be that, that smash mouth team, play strong defense and have better than complimentary quarterback play because you went out and made a move for Geno Smith. I thought this was going to be that tough smash mouth type football team. But then you see a game like Kansas City where you're down 2 playmakers in Brock Bowers and Jakobi Meyers, and you see Ashton Genty get the ball one time. It's like, wait, hold on. That's your next best guy. Why isn't he being fed the ball? And, I've heard so many times from coaches, I've heard other, fans talking about and other like beat writers talking about, well, you don't want to give him too many carries. Well, why don't you? Right. I mean, the guy, when he gets asked a question about, hey, you had 23 carries, how does your body feel? It's like, he feels fine. He's a grown man, man. He's not an egg. You don't have to coddle him, right? You don't have to use kid gloves with him. He's a grown man that had 750 carries in college. And I know college is different than the NFL, but he can carry the workload. And when you're down with your playmakers and you have one that's out there willing and able, you got to feed him. And offensive line be damned, right? You're going to work with me. I'm going to work with you. Let's get it done. And for some reason, they just have not established who they really are. And it's already week 8 right now.
I see the comment from our guy Walton saying the coaches don't make adjustments. I disagree with that. I've seen these coaches make adjustments in the past. Here's what's going to have to happen, though, during this bye week. It's going to have to be some big adjustments.
Yep.
Coaches, players play. Look, Chip Kelly has to let his pride aside and say, you know what I envisioned initially hasn't worked and has to do something different.
Yep.
Now, I'm not talking about a dramatic change to the offensive philosophy, but you change the initial looks to give the defense something else to think about and to work with. Things like making an I-back formation, with a tight end, taking Ian Thomas back there and have him stand at fullback, and or one of your biggest guys, or even bring Alex Kappa in since you're trying so hard to get him in the game. Yep. But the fact of the matter is they're going to have to make adjustments and make changes because right now this team has no identity. And I watched the Charger game last night, and I was surprised because I had heard in recent weeks that they have gone more to a passing offense, knowing how much that Harbaugh likes to run. But because of injuries to the offensive line and the running back field, they've gone more to where they relied on Justin Herbert. And Herbert used his legs a lot in that game against Minnesota. There's openings there. There are opportunities there. I do think you don't have to be a mobile quarterback, but you can't be a statue in today's league. So you got to use those opportunities to extend plays and extend drives. But still, the Chargers had a conscious effort of running the football and did it very well against the Vikings.
Yeah. This
is what the Raiders need to establish. We know that they want it to be a run-first offense. Then get back to the basics. I challenge the offensive lineman. I'll call 3 straight runs. If we get a first down, we'll call 3 more.
Yep.
We get a first down, we're going to keep it going until we know that we can assign something and establish something, a presence, a filler up there, and establish an aggressive nature to where we're going to take it to the defense rather than always catching.
So, with that being said, I think we all thought that the Raiders would be like a team that would run the ball a lot, right? But you're only as successful as your O-line. And, right. I think people are really upset about the O-line, but if Colton Miller is not going to be healthy and not on the O-line, there's going to be issues on the O-line already with that. One guy that has been talked a lot about is JPJ, and he was benched. He was the only player benched in the Kansas City game, which just kind of blew my mind. Right. And we're going to get into that into the next segment. But in terms of the vibes of the locker room, because you guys are very close with this team, you guys, very close with this franchise and organization. So what are you guys hearing what the vibes are like in the locker room? Because when you lose a game like that and then you go into a bye week, what are the vibes like? Q?
Well, I could tell you straight up that they're good. Obviously, they they don't like that loss, and that was a ugly performance by him. And so, of course, the vibe in the locker room immediately following the game is not going to be good. But throughout the course of this past week, when they were practicing on Tuesday and Wednesday, they had good vibes. Now they're out of there now, to get a couple days of R&R before they come back and start preparing for Jacksonville. But they're still upbeat. Every player that I've talked to, I talked to Jakobi Meyers in good detail this past week, and he said, "Hey man, nobody needs to tighten up. Everyone is still here playing for each other." He even doubled down on the fact that, I still want to be traded, but I got my brothers that are beside me that I love, that I'm here for. That tells you a lot, right? If this guy who said before the season he wanted to get traded because of a contract situation, they said no, he said, "Okay, no problem, let's get to work." And he's still 10 toes down and says that everyone from the left and the right of him is still on the same page. That tells you kind of how this locker room is. I talked to Darien Porter, one-on-one on Wednesday, and I said, with the veteran leadership that you have in this locker room, is that what's helping keep this locker room together? He said, no, we genuinely are all here for each other, right? We all love each other. We're here for each other. We're going to continue to fight to get this thing turned around. So they're all saying the right things. Now, Lincoln knows. He's been there, done that. It's just one thing to say the right things, and it's another thing to say, hey, but we do need to see some success. So they need to figure things out. This coaching staff needs to, figure out what these guys do really well, try to, highlight that to get them a little taste of success, because the more L's you take, the harder it's going to be for all these guys to still continue to, be there and have each other's back, because everyone ultimately wants to win at the end of the day.
I've been in locker rooms when he had disastrous seasons, and there's really no way that you can talk positively about it. I mean, it is what it is. You have a microphone stuck in your face. Hey, Lincoln, what do you think about this? This losing streak or what's going on with the team? You've got to say all the right things. And I hear Jakobi Meyers and other guys saying all the right things, but it's up to you. Got to go out there and do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about show me. Don't talk about it. You got to be about it. And that's where the challenge goes. And look, I set forth the challenge because I think everyone at every position on this team and players have to challenge themselves to be better, because we haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen consistency yet. That's why you lack an identity. And going forward in the second half of the season, it should be the outcome. Look, we're probably not going to go to the playoffs. We're probably not going to have a winning record, but we can do more than we did last year. And that to me shows improvement. You can't keep making all these big changes. And you'll have Raider Nation and everybody out there throwing out kinds of possibilities. Trade Maxx Crosby, trade this guy, trade. Yeah. Look, if we keep getting rid of good players, no matter what, and trying to stockpile, we're never going to get anywhere, because all we're doing with every coaching change, there's a personnel change and a scheme change, so on and so forth. So we got to stay fast. And I know it's a lot to ask for the Raider Nation and people, but there's really no other way around it. You got to take these lumps.
Yep. Yeah, and with a bye week, like, there is usually changes that are made. Do you guys feel like there will be any changes made? And I think it would have happened already if there were going to be changes, but in terms of the coaching staff or some movement. But because here's the thing, a lot of people are curious to know whether or not Pete Carroll is going to stay through, the whole entire term of his contract. And here's the thing, Link, you said it, the Raiders cannot continue to keep firing their coaches, right? They have to build, and that takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. This is not a playoff contending team right now. So they're not going to have success right away. So it doesn't really make sense to not give Pete Carroll a full chance. But in terms of changes being made, do you see any happening before, the next game?
I'd be hard pressed to see if you're going to make any changes. You just, what can you possibly do? I mean, first of all, you got to remember, pride is a big thing when it comes to men in these type of situations. So you got to ask, Pete Carroll to lower his pride a little bit, put his pride aside, maybe do something different. Chip Kelly, Patrick Graham. You got to lower. Here's the thing: you got to be open up to what people come and challenge you and talk to you about making change, and be willing to do it. And I'm not talking about a total makeover. You don't have to do that, but you just have to change some things up to maybe build some confidence, because that's really what this team lacks right now, is overall confidence. They haven't won a game.
Right, exactly. So, I don't see any changes coming to the coaching staff at all. And, I've seen some people talk about, the head coach, and he's not the right guy for the job. He's too old, whatever the reason is. But the problem is, you just can't keep hauling off and firing people. You just can't. That continuous rotation and that door that keeps rotating is just not, it doesn't work, right? I mean, you don't have continuity, like Lincoln said. Every time you have a staff change, you have a personnel change. Every time you have a personnel change, you have a scheme change. Every time you do that, you can't build depth. And that's what the Raiders lack, is depth. So when a Brock Bowers goes down, when the Jakobi Meyers goes down, they don't have the quality depth behind these guys to still feel like they're competitive. They don't. When a Colton Miller goes down, they don't have the depth behind him to feel like they're competitive. It's just it's been way too much turnover. And even at some stage of the game, if they think, yeah, maybe this isn't going to be the staff that's going to get it done, they're going to have to stick with it maybe a little bit longer than they wanted to, because of the fact that they just keep getting rid of people. You just can't keep doing that. That rotating door is never going to get it done. It just won't.
Yeah, and I'll say this, like, we've seen Pete Carroll do what he did at USC. We saw what he did in Seattle. That took time. Like, before Pete Carroll got to Seattle, Seattle was struggling, right? The only other successful year they had was back in like 2005 when they went to the Super Bowl against, and they had Sean Alexander and Matt Hasselbeck, and that was a while ago. And then they struggled until Pete Carroll got there. So it's not going to happen overnight. I'll say that much. My final question to you for this segment, guys, is just that, do you have faith that the Raiders can kind of turn it around? Like, what would be a successful season at this point? Would it be to have the same amount of wins as last season? Because if I'm taking a look at the schedule right now, I see maybe two wins, and I'm not even sure. Link, what do you think?
Look, a successful season for me would be double the amount of wins that you had last year. That would total 8. That would be a successful season. It's highly unlikely the Raiders are going to get there. It's just the way it is, especially right now, the way they're playing. So with that being said, I just want them to get one win. And I'm looking at the second half of the schedule. You're right. It's not looking lucrative, for this team to find a win, but they've got to find a way to do it. We've seen them pull it out before, and it would make it, competitive, that type of thing. But you just can't get blown out like they did in Kansas City. They got to find a way to right that ship first. That's
the biggest thing for me. I don't know what they're going to do as far as wins. I mean, I said 8 wins at the beginning of the season. Raider Nation thought I was crazy. Why are you settling for 8? Look, I think Raider Nation right now would love 8. I just want to see this team go out there and compete. I want to see this team go out there and do exactly what we were promised that they were going to do, right? They were going to be competitive in every game. They were going to fight. They were going to scratch. They were going to claw. They weren't going to beat themselves. They weren't going to have all kind of terrible mistakes. They were going to be a physical, tough team, right? They were going to be just again, that ultra competitive team. That's what I want to see. What we saw on Sunday against the Chiefs, there was no competition there. I mean, that thing was over before it got started. And the fact that they've been blown out 3 times in the 5 losses that they've had, that is the big problem. I didn't think we were going to be in line to see that when it came to this Raiders team led by Pete Carroll. So I want to see them go out there and, again, I don't look for moral victories, but I also don't look to get embarrassed, right? Those embarrassing losses are the ones that's like, what in the hell? Like, I kept watching that game against Kansas City, just waiting for, all right, they're going to wake up. All right, okay, now they got the ball back. All right, this is the drive where they're going to start to show something. Okay, maybe this is going to be the drive. Okay, oh, well, hold on. Now the game's over. You know what I mean? Like, it never appeared, and that's what can't happen, right? When people are watching the game and then they're falling asleep on the couch, that's when you know it's a problem. That just can't happen.
3 games ago was 58 plays. Then it was 52 plays, 30 plays. They've gone downhill in offensive production. They've continued to decline, and you can't really put your finger on it. And we're trying to place blame, but I'm here to tell you that a running game is a quarterback's best friend. So you need to get back to the basics. Football's not hard. It really isn't hard. I mean, it's you got physical upon physical, but those guys are capable of going out there. They've shown that they can do it. It's a young man's game. Figure it out. They've got to find a way to put it together and score some points, help their defense out, give them a rest, because this defense is overexposed. And you saw even early in the game in Kansas City how they were worn down, just couldn't get off the field.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but I think they're worse than last year. I think this team is worse than last year, which is really tough to say. And I think some people may owe AP an apology, because
a lot of people owe AP an apology.
Yeah. You're right, Link. And we're taking a look at this team, and I'm with Q. At this point, I just want them to be competitive. I want to see competitive games, because nothing is worse than like still sitting on the couch and it's 31-0, and there's like 1:36 left in the game, and you're still watching. Like, why am I still watching? And there's only like a minute 36 in the game. Like, what am I expecting to happen in a minute 36? But Raider Nation, extremely passionate. So hopefully there will be a lot more happier times in the second half of the season for the Raiders, even if it's just making little adjustments here and there. But coming up in the next segment, we are going to be talking about trade rumors, because the trade deadline is coming up just after Q's birthday. We did not forget here on the Squad Show, Q. We are going to be talking about whether or not the Raiders are buyers or sellers. That's coming up next on the Raider Squad Show. So keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raider Squad Show. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. This is awesome because not only if you hit the bet, which is there's nothing like winning a slip, but you get $300 extra dollars, and it's not even $300 that you're putting in. It's bonus bets, and you can bet however you like. So that's an amazing offer, and like it's kind of like free bread to win more bread. So that's why I like it. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Welcome back, Raider Nation. Remember, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media channels. You'll see in the description below the ways that you can connect with us. And once again, we appreciate you making Locked On Raiders or the Locked On Raider Squad Show your first listen of the day. Now, obviously, the trade deadline is coming up, and there's been lots of rumors. One of them was shut down. The Raiders said they weren't going to move Maxx Crosby, which is great because there's some people that are like, the Raiders should move Maxx Crosby. And some people are like, no way, because he's a staple and foundation of this team, of this defense. Now, the biggest question is, are the Raiders going to be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline? They do have some pieces. We'll go with you first, Link. Do you think the Raiders are going to be buyers or sellers? And obviously, Jakobi Meyers is also a name, but who do you think is on this list to possibly be mentioned or might be on the trade block?
Really, the big one that comes to mind is Jakobi Meyers, and for me, the sign was clear as day when I saw he scratched from the Kansas City game when he was on the sideline of the Kansas City game, because I know they were talking about his knee and stuff like that, but if his knee he went out to warm up and then they didn't clear him and they scratched him from there, put him on the inactive roster. So I think Jakobi Meyers is likely to go. They're not going to find a deal. They're going to try to get out of that last year at $33 million in that contract. And probably, look, there are teams that are buying, like right now, Pittsburgh is known to look for receivers. There's a possibility. I've heard rumors there might be a 4th-round pick for that trade. So I don't necessarily know that qualifies them as sellers, because really the Raiders don't have a whole lot of capital to sell. I mean, So let's be honest. To buy, they're cash friendly. They've got picks, but it's what you do with those picks. And I don't know, if you're going to be able to pull a rabbit out of the hat in some big trade. I don't think that's happening this year, but Jakobi Meyers is the only one that's on my list.
Yeah, that's the name that's going to continue to float out there until that November 4th date passes by, right? And something happens one way or the other. And look, he's reiterated in the locker room that he does want to be traded, right? I mean, they tried to get a contract extension done. It didn't happen. So he asked for a trade. They said no. He said, okay, got back to work. But he reiterated to us in the locker room on Tuesday that, I still want to be traded. So if they move me, they move me. If not, I'll go out there and play with my brothers. He said he's just trying to get healthy for Jacksonville or whoever he's playing. So he's trying to keep a clear mind. He knows there's a good possibility that he could be moved. I hope that they don't move him. I think that you need a veteran, and I think you need a guy who's an ultimate teammate like him in the locker room. I think that means something. That should stand for something. But I understand the stage of the game, and I understand where they are at 2-5, and they're going to continue to try to build this team up, and they obviously have a lot of holes that they need to fill. I think Malcolm Kuntz is a name that you could maybe hear floated around, but he hasn't really done anything, to Lincoln's point, to sit there and scream like, this is some team like Dallas or whoever's looking for that edge rusher needs to go out and get that guy. I've seen Tyree Wilson's name floated around, but again, whatever I just said about Malcolm Kuntz, rinse and repeat, right? You can say that the same thing about Tyree. The Raiders really don't have anyone that's done a whole lot outside of Maxx, and Jakobi that you feel like, okay, teams are really interested in those guys. Obviously, Brock Bowers is off the he's untouchable. Ashton's obviously untouchable. Maxx is untouchable. And that's really about it, right? And I don't know what the interest is from the outside teams but there'll definitely be a few teams that'll be inquiring about probably Jakobi, like Lincoln said.
Yeah.
One guy that I want to ask you guys about, and this would stress me out if they did this, but if they traded JPJ.
I'm out on this conversation. I'm out.
Okay. No, listen, because I don't know what's going on over there, but something is going on, and I'm trying to figure it out. And it's like, what's going on with the coaching staff in JPJ? Because not only is the O-line struggling, but you want to trade away one of your most talented pieces on the O-line. This is the O-line that doesn't have depth, and there's something going on where I don't want to say, like, I don't want to be messy here, but they're not seeing eye to eye. Like for
Right.
some strange reason, I don't think JPJ and this coaching staff are seeing eye to eye. That's very, very clear. So would he also possibly be on the move? What do you guys think?
Let me jump in real quick. And I said I'm out because I had mentioned that on the last show that we did, right? I mentioned that JPJ, for every reason that you said, and for some reason people think I want to see him traded. I think he's the second best offensive lineman that they have. I would hate to see him traded. I think it's dumb. Right. I don't know what the disconnect is, but it's obvious, right? I mean, Stevie Wonder could see that there's an issue, right? And I don't know what the issue is. I'm around the damn team all the time. I don't know what the issue is, but something is there. So that's why I said there's a slight chance that if a team comes calling that, maybe Seattle, who just dropped their offensive lineman, maybe they want, I don't know. But if they're not seeing eye to eye, I could see them saying, hey, instead of having to answer the question about why ain't JPJ doing this or why ain't JPJ doing that, let's remove the situation. I could see it. I'm not rooting for it at all. That's why I said I'm out of the conversation, because I don't want to come off and have that perception that Q's trying to suggest he needs to be moved. No, I think it's dumb. You don't get rid of talented players. You don't get rid of your good players, and he's as close to a blue chip player I think that the Raiders have, and they don't have that many of them. But that's, to your point, everything that you just said is the reason why I think that there's a chance that it could happen.
Colton Miller is their best offensive lineman on the roster. And I think he's coming to the end of his career. I don't think he's going to be playing that much longer after seeing how these injuries have racked up. JPJ is your next best lineman. Mm-hmm. And we're already talking about offensive line play as porous as it's been. I feel for the young man, because this second-year guy went up against 2 all-pro defensive tackles back-to-back weeks, and the offense did not give him any help. They did not address the situation that you had all pro at defensive tackle. Hey, let's help out our young guard by doing some things differently, some tandem blockings, try to put it on those defensive tackles so they just didn't tee back their ears and rush the quarterback. Didn't happen. So I don't know what's going on in the locker room with JPJ. I really don't. But you can't get rid of him. You can't get rid of him. You cannot get rid of him. He is going to be the mainstay, the main focal point for the future of this offensive line and this Raider team. And you have to build around that. But he also has to be on the field. So whatever JPJ is doing to keep himself off the field, or whatever he's getting into the locker room, whatever's happening needs to be ironed out and fixed. Because, look, Alex Kappa is not the answer. And so stop bringing him in games. I don't know what's going on, but they got to stop bringing him in games. He's not the answer. You need to figure what's going on with your second best offensive lineman and keep him happy.
Yeah, and it's funny because like when I heard the JPJ rumors, I was upset. I was like, I'm gonna throw in the towel. I can't take this anymore. And then I was on like Raider Image like 10 minutes later, so I was lying. But I'll say this though. One guy that is potentially might be on the trade block, and this is more of them being a buyer, but like it kind of caught my eye. Braxton Jones. They're saying that he could likely be moved because there was a full list that was put out of guys that could potentially be moved, and I took a look at the list, and he was on there. Yeah. If you're the Raiders and you want to add some more depth, like, and you see a name like Braxton Jones, do you go for him? I know the Raiders aren't like a playoff contending team right now, but it's so like Link, this, it's so hard to find good O linemen.
Yeah, no doubt.
So would you go for a guy like Braxton Jones? Because it's an interesting name on that list.
Depends on the price in which he's asking, because you always have to ask the question, why is he on that list?
Boom.
That's the big thing. Look, we have names that are moving around and floating around there all the time, but there's a reason why they're on the open market. They're going to be made available. And sometimes with these veterans, you got to be careful, sis, because the thing is that they'll ask for way more than you're prepared to pay
right.
them. And we see a lot of prove-it contracts on this team right now with John Spytek and his crew. So you go out there and trade for a guy that might be a high price that you have to commit to him. Got to be careful. So it depends on what they're asking for. Depends on if you can do a background search and figure out why he's on the open market, what's going on. But yeah, they do need players like that they can help address their needs. I just don't know how much right now, if it's going to help or hurt.
It's always, whenever you're buying, it's always about what's the price? What's the price to do business, right? Is it worth it? Is it worth giving up some draft capital to bring in a veteran, right? And what's his contract look like? Does he need to get a contract extension, right? How is this going to work out? Or is it better to use and save your draft capital and go and get your own guy that fits the mold of what you want, right? And this is going back to what we talk about coaches and constant turnover, right? You have all the Raider Nation talking about fire this guy, fire that guy, and let's just use the offensive line coach. Hey, get rid of the offensive line coach. Okay, but now you're going to go trade for another offensive lineman. Well, is he going to fit with what your offensive line coach, you know what I mean? Like, is he going to fit with what they're trying to coach up? How does he fit in with what you're doing? So now all of a sudden you've got a different piece added to this other puzzle. So, I know Evan Neal's name is out there too. Former first-round pick on the offensive line for the G-Men. Looks like he's going to be out of there sooner rather than later. And so, again, there's veterans that you can look at and say, is the price of doing business worth it to bring into this team? Don, be honest, if they make a move and bring anyone in, I would look in at Seattle, and I would look at Tariq Woolen. He was a former 5th-round pick out of UTSA. Pete Carroll had a lot of success with him in Seattle, and he's kind of on the outside looking in right now. I mean, he's got a little bit of burn. He's played decent. They've got some injuries with Devin Witherspoon right now, which might slow them down from wanting to make a move. But it looks like he's a guy who's available, and there's a good chance that he gets moved. So if the Raiders make any move, I would not be surprised if that was the guy they brought in.
Yeah, he has familiarity with Pete, and also I don't think that's a move where they're spending a lot of money to get him or having to move like a lot of capital. That's a move that they can make, and it would make a lot of sense. In terms of things making sense, and you take a look at the Raiders, another name that I was looking at on the list, because you guys talked about capital and how the Raiders don't have a lot of capital to move, but there are some veterans on this team, and one guy that I kind of thought about was Adam Butler, because he is a guy that's older, 31 years old. I believe they already paid him for 2026, if I'm not mistaken. So you kind of take that L. But at the same time, he's a piece where he's a veteran, and they could maybe get something for him in terms of a draft pick. Because at the same time, you don't want to give up a bunch of draft picks if you're trying to build within the draft. Because that's the question here at the trade deadline, I think. If the Raiders are buyers or sellers, it kind of tells you if they're accepting whether or not this is a rebuild. And I think they have to accept that this is a rebuild now, because it's so hard to rebuild on the fly. And I think that's what they tried to do. And it just doesn't work. Like it's extremely hard to do. I feel like you have to either commit to the rebuild or, there's no rebuilding on the fly. Right.
Well, that's what we've been, saying and trying to figure out. Like, is this win now or is it rebuild? Because having 1 foot in and 1 foot out is hard to navigate. Right. It's like, I can't jump in the pool and swim if only one of my legs is in the water. Right? I got to, you know what I mean? I can't swim anyway, to be honest.
I can't either.
Damn shame, people.
I was in Mexico in the ocean this past week. I was lying just for the grab. I can't swim.
Come on, go, please get out and swim, please. Water is a beautiful thing. Don't do this. Anyways, go ahead, Q. Sorry.
That's all I
got. Here's the thing. After 2 wins, halfway through the season, basically, you're not winning. It's not working. Do you just squash the whole thing and say, okay, we're in rebuild mode? And what does that entail? I mean, let's be honest. We knew that this team was very thin. They had a plan coming into the season. They were very thin at key parts. Adam Butler has been a pretty good run stopper for times that he's been in there and been healthy. You get rid of him, and then you got a big old gash in the middle now, a big old hole in the middle that you have unproven guys. I'm not saying that you totally rely on the younger or the next generation, where you throw everything into the draft. We got to have a great draft. I'm saying for the win now possibility, and you're not alienating all your fans, you've got to find a way to coach the players that you have to be better. That's what I'm saying. And that doesn't constitute a rebuild mode. That's not a rebuild mode. It's doing what we have, and this is all we're going to play with. Because look, you've got cash space, you've got draft choices. You start giving away your good players because you're trying to increase draft capital. Well, you're putting a whole lot of emphasis on the next generation, the new class next year. You're telling your fan base, oh, wait again through this year again, because we're going to try to build through the draft. We're not using our draft choice right now. We got Ashton Jeffy. He's almost close to 1,000 yards. We're not really using him. How about that? Go figure that. So, put the pieces together, what you have right now. That's where the coaching really comes in mind. And that's who comes under the microscope for me. Coaches. Now I want to see you make a difference, what we have.
And so that kind of brings me, and we're going to touch on this in the next segment, because Link, this is why you're so great at what you do, because we're going to talk about if the young guys should get more of an opportunity after the bye week. And there's a bunch of young guys that the Raiders have invested in. And we'll talk about that next, Raider Nation. So keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're listening or watching the Raider Squad Show. This episode is brought to you by Mazda, moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. These are moments that do more than put up points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward, and Raider Nation, it was hard for me to find this in the game for the Raiders against the Chiefs. There wasn't a lot of positivity. So I just quickly looked at whatever the highest stat was. And for me, it had to be Jeremy Chin, because he had 8 tackles. And that's all I could find. And that was him moving the game forward. And that's okay, because hopefully after the bye week, they'll be a little bit better. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like that, there's more to every highlight. There's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Welcome back, Raider Nation. Remember, if you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media channels, and you can see in the description below the ways that you can connect with us. And if you're also listening to this on the audio side, we do appreciate you. If you got a couple of minutes, leave a rate and review or give us a 5-star, because that does help the channel grow. And Raider Nation, we appreciate you rocking out with us, even though things have been a little bit rough. With that being said, guys, there's been so much talk throughout the season about whether or not, and we will focus a little bit on Geno here as well, because we have to. And there's talk of whether or not, especially after that game against the Chiefs, should they go to Kenny Pickett? Because at this point, it's like, I think people are also waiting for Aiden O'Connell to come back. But at this point, after what we saw, and Geno did not look good at all, and some of the blame does get put on the quarterback. Like, let's be serious here. Do you think the Raiders should just go at this point, just for a change, right? We're not saying Kenny Pickett's going to be a guy that's going to turn around the season, but at this point, just for a little bit of a change and for a little bit of shift, Link, would you go to a guy like Kenny Pickett?
Yes, I would. What's the harm? My quarterback is skittish. If anything, I sit Geno down, have Kenny go out there and play, and Geno gets more fired up to want to go out there and prove himself. Competition. I mean, it's time to compete. Why not? What we've done so far isn't working. It's that, and look, I do believe Geno Smith has become slightly skittish. I saw it last night with Carson Wentz when he was looking at the pass rush rather than looking downfield. Yeah. It's a terrible habit for a quarterback to get into, but it's something they all fall prey to, especially if they've been hit so many times and you're worried about your longevity and whether or not you're going to make it. This makeshift offensive line has not been consistent in its protection. They struggle in certain parts. The protection breaks down. Geno had failed to get rid of the ball in a timely fashion, has taken more sacks and given up more interceptions than really any quarterback in the league. I know the interceptions are top of the league, but the amount of hits that he's taken, he's skittish. So I'm of the mindset, I'm playing every young guy I have. I'm going to put you out there. I'm going to let you play, especially against the next game against Jacksonville. I'm going to put you out there and let you play. Jacksonville's a decent team, but they are beatable. I want to see what these young guys can do. I want to see what I have in the cupboard before I go shopping.
It's a good point. It's a good point. I think that the Raiders aren't going to do that just yet. I think that they're going to try to prepare for the Jacksonville Jaguars and come out of this and try to win. And why I say that is what Pete Carroll said to us on Monday when he talked about Geno Smith, and he said he feels like he's coming out of what he's going through. Feels like he's close to getting out of it. And so I think that he senses that skittishness and that guarded play that Lincoln's talking about. I think that everyone sees it, but they're trying to give him every chance to pop out of it on his own. Like, just kind of, it's like a shooter's slump, right? Trying to shoot their way out of the slump. I think that that's what they're going to try to do. Whether that's the right idea or not, I don't know. That's just a sense that I get. Again, I could be reading the tea leaves wrong. It doesn't feel like they're ready to make a move to the bullpen just yet, right? Especially after what, Pete Carroll had to say about Kenny Pickett and the way he was talking about him on Monday when we met with him. He's like, he gets in and he freaking screws it up on the first play. Like, I mean, he damn near dog cussed him, right? I mean, he was pretty upset by the fumble snap. And look, to be honest, you're waiting for your moment to get in the game, and the very first play you fumble. Now, I know that he hadn't worked with Jordan Meredith, right? It's all going to be new, but those are the kind of mistakes that you can't make when you're trying to make an impression of, yeah, this is why I should be on the field. I can get it done. All of a sudden you fumble the ball away on the first snap, then that's not going to make an impression on the head coach. So again, I'm not saying that it's the right decision not to go to Kenny Pickett. I just don't think that they're going to, not at least right now.
What's inexcusable to me is that you still have difficulty with the center quarterback exchange in the professional league. That's like a point guard who can't make a free throw. What the hell? This is something. The moment Kenny got the nod, you're going in the game. He should have been over there with Meredith. Let's practice this. Let's get these snaps. Take a couple snaps. And I don't know if they did that, but it's a damn shame that your first play you go in there and you fumble the snap. Looks like the Keystone Cops. I mean, really, you're inept. So that's inexcusable. That's inexcusable. That goes back to coaching, because the moment Kenny's got the idea, his quarterback coach Greg Roman should have went over and said, start taking some snaps. Right. You're going in. Start taking some snaps. Take some shotgun snaps. Take some under center snaps. You're going in. The fumble of that first play is absolutely dreadful.
Yeah, and I think Raider Nation just wants to see a little bit more productivity in terms of, the quarterback position, and they're hoping that Kenny Pickett can provide a little bit of, I don't know, momentum, but like a little bit of a shift in terms of success. But
Just a
I
little
agree.
spark.
Yeah,
Just a
exactly.
little spark. Get a little spark. Get some offense. Get some first downs. Hey, I'll be happy with that. If I would have saw a first down in Kansas City, oh yes, we're on the right track. I'm still holding hope. No, we couldn't even get that. We had 3 first downs.
Well, and Aiden O'Connell is getting close to getting back too. That's something else that Pete Carroll said, is that he's getting closer and closer. I see him walking around the facility all the time. He's looking better. He's not out there throwing it yet, but he does look like he's getting better. So remember, the only reason Kenny Pickett's is on the squad is because Aiden O'Connell got injured. So there is a chance that maybe he comes back if they don't go to, a backup quarterback this week against Jacksonville. Maybe Aiden O'Connell has an opportunity to come back, and maybe that's the move that they go to instead of Kenny Pickett. Again, just throwing it out there. Not saying it's happening, just throwing it out there and kind of giving an update of where he's at this stage of the game.
And my other question to you guys is, because with Geno, and I agree with you, Q, I don't think they're going to go to Kenny Pickett after the bye week. I think they might stick with Geno and then maybe go to Kenny Pickett. Like if Geno has a dud in the first half, I think they might make that switch and then move over to Kenny Pickett. But I think Pete is going to stick with this guy because, like, as much as they were terrible against the Chiefs are a really good team. Like I think they deserve some credit there. I mean, there's no excuse to be that poor offensively, but you know what I'm trying to say here. In terms of the O-line, do you guys think the young guys get an opportunity now? Because like I know, like for a guy like Grant, people were saying like he's not ready yet to be on that O-line, but this O-line has struggled so much. Link, do you think those young guys get some burn now?
No, that's the difficult part, because I just said a moment ago I want the young guys to play. At this particular point, there's no harm. You keep trying to get Alex Cap out there for some reason. I still don't know what the fondness of that is, but yeah, why not? Look, I don't believe that Rodgers is available. I mean, I'm ready yet. I really don't. I think but if you go max protection and you try to protect, you can protect offensive linemen, extra blockers, chippers, that type of thing, schemes, slides. There are things that you can do to help protect offensive linemen. But you got an aggressive defense and the Jaguars coming up. They've got some good pass rushers. You better be going max protection. And I do want the young players to play, I struggle with having them play in this situation because I've already talked about how inexperienced and non-cohesive this offensive line is together right now, because you're mix and matching different parts with other, different players. So you need to find a consistency at that point. So it's really difficult question. Part of me just wants to say yes. What we're doing right now isn't working. So yes, throw everything out there. I don't know. We might get a spark by somebody. Maybe Rodgers goes out and has a tremendous game opening up holes for Ashton Jeanty. Who knows? I don't know. We don't know that until we see it. But it's really difficult when you're playing with that offensive line because they've been a struggle all year. So I really don't know what you can do, especially with the offensive line.
Yeah, and that's my big concern. If Geno Smith is already skittish with the offensive line he has now, if you go ahead and put some youngsters on there, is he going to be more comfortable, or is he going to be like, hey, I don't know what these guys are doing, then really be uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Right? So, it's again, when your quarterback is shell-shocked like he is right now, you don't really have any idea of how he's going to react to any kind of movement, any kind of protection changes, right? I mean, at least he knows what these guys could do at this stage of the game. He doesn't know what a Caleb Rogers is going to do. He doesn't know what a Charles Grant's going to do. Given the situation. So, it's one of those, it's a pick your poison, I guess. It's a tough call. And with the offensive line in particular, it's not like you're throwing Darien Porter in there for Caillou Blue Kelly and you're saying, go ahead, young man, go play. That's one thing. But when you're asking the offensive line to go ahead, hey, we're going to go put these two young guys in here because, well, this offensive line is not getting it done, so they're going to go ahead and try. Again, we always go back to the one band, one sound. That's the unit that has to be one band, one sound. That's the unit that has to row in the right direction, right? There cannot be one guy rowing in the wrong direction. We saw that. That was Stone Forsythe and Dylan Parham. Stone comes in, he rows one way, Dylan rows the other way, Ashton Jeanty gets blown up. Boom, it's real simple, right? You've got to be rowing in the same direction, and I don't know how quickly they can all get on the same page. And that's my big issue. I don't have a problem playing the young guys at all, especially to find out what you have in them. I think that's smart, but that offensive line is such a challenge to be able to do that, because it's not just like some cat that's just saying, hey, man, I'm just going to go throw this guy in there and he's going to hold down this position.
You mentioned Darien Porter, and Caillou Blue Kelly has struggled a bit. Do you feel like Darien Porter is a guy that we're going to be seeing a lot more after the bye week?
You like that segue, huh? You like
how
of
course.
Send me up.
I
threw that alley-oop for you, right?
Yeah, I know you used to hoop too, so that was perfect.
Hey, man, Q knows ball.
But, that's true story.
But no, I do think Darien Porter is going to get some more burn had a chance to talk to him in the locker room on Wednesday before they left for the break, and just asked him, if he's ready to roll, how he feels, and he's feel good to go. Pete Carroll had mentioned that the young guys were going to get a little bit more burn in practice before they left for their actual bye week. So I do think that there's a chance that we'll see Darien Porter, because Caillou Blue-Kelly has struggled. Eric Stokes has actually been quietly having a good season. Matter of fact, I've seen his name with some other teams out there saying, hey, you know what? That Eric Stokes is pretty good. Maybe we can call the Raiders and try to pick him up. Remember, he's on a 1-year deal. So don't be surprised if, I know that name hasn't really been talked about quite a bit, but he's having a good season. So I would not be surprised if a team calls and says, what would it take to get Eric Stokes out of there? I'm not saying that they'd make a move, but I do think we'll see Darien Porter sooner rather than later. They were really high on him in training camp. Then Caillou Blue-Kelly made a nice little push. He got the start, but he's been struggling. So, yeah, I think DP you'll definitely see coming out the break.
Speaking of cornerbacks, I think the Raiders are going to probably make a move for Rick Woolen, the Seattle Seahawks defensive back, mainly because Pete Carroll likes that size, and he's still experimenting with this defensive secondary, especially with this type of defense that Patrick Graham wants to play. So I can see them making a move probably for him. But to your point, look, there's still going to be some changes made. We already know what's going to happen. There will be some guys that this team could steal off a practice squad and try to compile this roster to make it a little bit more depth, give it a little bit more depth. But right now, this is the young team that has to play, and they have to learn how to play together. Right. And the thing is, you keep making all these changes and bringing in all these new faces for whatever reason, whether it's money, whether it's play. There's a reason why these guys are available and being moved from team to team. You still got to see what you have in the cupboard before you go shopping. That's all I have to say.
The Raiders also drafted 2 receivers in that draft. And one of them was obviously, a guy like Dante Thornton Jr. And then you also, had a guy like Jack Bech. What do you guys think about their progress, and what have you liked so far? And do you think we see more of them?
Well, Bech, he's got more snaps. He hasn't got more targets, but he got more snaps. What I like about Bech, and when he does get a target and get a catch, 9 times out of 10, it's a first down. He's a guy that's not going to, wow you with his deep speed. He's not going to be a guy that's going to stretch the field, but he's a guy that can extend the drive. And, well, as we know, with the Raiders getting 3 first downs last week, they need as many first downs as possible. They need as many drive extenders as possible. I think that that's the guy that you will see, especially if you see Jakobi Meyers moved. That's the other thing. People always say, well, get this guy in and get this guy in. Okay, well, whose place is he taking, right? Whose snaps is he going to take? So if Bech is getting a ton of more snaps, who's losing out some snaps? Right now, you don't want to take Trey Tucker off the field because Trey Tucker's your leading wide receiver, right? Dante Thornton, his snap count has gone down as of late. So, okay, so he's taking that spot. But then you want the explosiveness out there, right? And you want him and Geno to get on the same page because they did have a pretty good relationship, and you can see them trying to work that relationship together. So I think a lot depends on if Jakobi gets moved or not. Again, not wanting him to get moved, but I know there's a strong possibility it could happen. If he does get moved, I think we'll see a lot of Trey Tucker, Dante Thornton, and Jack Bech out there all at the same time, right? Just by default. You just about have to, right? And so that's what happens when a young guy gets a bunch of snaps. Whose spot is he taking? That's what you have to ask yourself.
I like the way Jack Bech is starting to develop. I mean, I like his size. The only thing I'm working with him during this bye week is you got to run past the sticks before you turn around and come back, because he's going to be a good possession receiver. And he came up short last week. And you got to make sure you get that first down. I need you to push the sticks and get open quickly so I can find you for that first down to be that ultimate possession receiver, which the Raiders don't have right now. They were relying on, Brock Bowers, but he hasn't been available. So you can't really go into on your tight end, put that pressure. We got to see what these young guys have. And there's no better way than getting them out there. And I thought for sure, like when Jakobi Meyers was down in Kansas City, that we would see a little bit more of Thornton Jr. He's out there, and he would take up some of the slack. Just haven't seen that transform. I don't know if it's the skittish passing game, the inappropriate, inadequate pass protection, any of that stuff. It's all that stuff, but he hasn't got the football.
Well, and every catch that Thornton had against the Chiefs was called back because of penalty.
That's another thing. That's another thing.
So there's criticism of Thornton. Well, he's not this, he's not that. Well, when he does come up with catches and their drive extenders, their first downs, then there's a penalty. There's a holding penalty. There's a legal formation. There's a wide receiver in Jack Bech lined up off sides. That can't happen. Yeah. That's football 101. You check with the receiver. Like, I'm a DB and I know that. You check with the ref. Hey, am I on? Yeah, you're on. You're good. They'll give you the thumbs up. Or if not, they'll give you the finger. Like, no, get your ass back. Right? It's so frustrating. Like, how do you do that? You can't line up off sides as a wide receiver. It's crazy, but it happens.
Yeah, and you know what? In terms of Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly, obviously they're going to have to make some adjustments, and they have been trying to make these adjustments. But at what point do you think that they just totally switch and do something different, because I think they're still trying to keep with this program and still trying to keep with the fact that they're trying to rebuild on the fly. And if you start to play the young guys, like if we see a Graham, if we see a Rodgers on that O-line, is that just accepting like, hey, we're giving these young guys burn and this is a rebuild? Because here's the thing, I think this is why Raider Nation is upset, because in the beginning of the season, in the off season, they made the move to go get Gito, and right away people thought, hey, you know what, the Raiders could possibly be a playoff contending team, right? They added some pieces in terms of, Ashton Genty, you go get a running back, and then there's hope. And Raider Nation's like, I think this is a year where we kind of make some noise, and people are like, Nick Wright is saying that they might be a sleeper and get like 12 wins. So I think the expectations were very, very high for Raider Nation, and then this season came along and it was the total opposite. So if you're starting to play those young guys, are you fully accepting and showing people, hey, this is a rebuild? Because before the season, they weren't saying this was a rebuild, guys.
No, they weren't. That's the big question that I keep wondering. Are they going to lean all the way into a rebuild, or are they going to continue to straddle the fence? That's honestly, that's the big question, because again, what we were told by Pete Carroll, and this is why I'm frustrated, is that we're winning. We're going for it, right? We're winning a lot of games. I don't know anything else. Not that he's supposed to come out saying that we're going to lose, but he's said now multiple times he's surprised that they're not as far along as like, hey, I thought we'd be further along than this at this stage of the game. So to me, that means that his expectations and the way he viewed this team is not what he's seeing translate on the field, and it's catching him off guard. And this is not like this is a new coach. This is a guy that's been there, done that, pretty much seen everything else, and probably forgot more than I'll ever know. And this is catching him off guard. That's what's concerning to me.
Come on, guys, you're 2-5. I don't know how you want to classify. Is it a rebuild? It's a total disaster. Throw it away. I'm done with these dishes. Let's go out and buy some new ones. However you want to look at it. It's not working what you're doing. These coaches need to humble themselves. And the thing is that if you're playing young guys, this is where the true blessing of being a coach should come into view. You got to figure out something that can use these guys. Hey, this guy runs this route this way. Let's incorporate more of these routes in our passing tree. Those types of things. This guy blocks this way. This guy rushes the quarterback this way. You want to see what you have, because you're going to put a lot of pressure on these young guys. If not now, then when? You brought them up to the National Football League. They're playing in that. They're on a roster. Let them earn their worth. Let them show their value. Besides that, what you're doing so far isn't working. You've got 5 losses. The season's not totally done. But I'm also practical and realistic with those people that came into the season thinking the Raiders are probably going to get double digits. Look, they say that every year about every promising sports franchise. How much talk is the Cowboys in the news every single year, just like the Raiders? There's promise. The Raider Nation is so grand and so big that everybody wants this team to be successful, unless you hate the Raiders. But they were at the bottom of the division looking up. And we knew that the Chargers were going to be there. We knew that the Broncos are going to be there. Hell, you knew the Chiefs were going to be there. They have not been able to win enough games. Wash everything. It's not working. Humble yourself. Go back to the basics. Let's start to create some more confidence. Let's get one win. Let's just start with one win. Then we get 2. We'll put ourselves on what they call a streak. But let's start with the one win.
Right. And obviously the biggest conversation has been the quarterback position. Yes. It's October. We haven't even hit November yet, and already people are looking forward to the draft, right? And people are looking at the fact, and this is my question, like, for quarterbacks, is everyone saying the Raiders, this is an early conversation, obviously, but everyone's kind of saying in terms of, on Twitter or X, that the Raiders should draft a quarterback and finally find their quarterback and try to develop him and put everything into him. But are there any quarterbacks that have caught your guys' eyes in college yet? Is it that one guy that you're for sure about? Because I don't know if there is. I don't think so. There's guys that are really good. I think that's where we need to start. There are guys that are good. Mendoza is really good. Moore is really good. Pavia, I think, is really good. Simpson, I think, is really good. But I don't see Caleb Williams. I don't see Jaden Daniels. I don't see Drake May. If you know what I mean. Like, I don't see that guy that's like, you've got to get that guy. If that makes sense. I don't see him yet. Maybe others do. I don't see it. I see good quarterbacks. I don't see anyone that I think is just like game changer, and you have to have that guy. Like, I don't want to win another game because I want to make sure my team's in position to get that guy. I don't see that guy right now. Again, someone else might, but those are just some of the names that pop off at the top of my head of quarterbacks that I know are good. I don't know if they're great. I cannot, with a clear conscience, think about anybody at the quarterback position that I think deserves to be in a Raider uniform, because this offensive line is atrocious. So I don't care who you put back there. No.
It doesn't matter.
Good
You
point.
can you can draft a Caleb Williams. You can draft whoever you want to.
Yeah, no,
it doesn't matter. Quarterback's running for his life under this current scheme. It's not working. So I'm of this mindset. If you don't address this offensive line, this team will continue to go nowhere. It's a fact. This offensive line has been dreadful and dreadfully inconsistent. And DJ Gray is now
that's what you're saying. Proctor, Alabama.
You know what? Here's the thing. You see DJ Gray starting to struggle with speed, and he didn't have that problem last year because he's exposed with the scheme, the shotgun. You need to move under center, give him a chance to produce. We don't know if Cole Miller's going to come back or how he's going to come back or how many years he's got. You have to address that situation. You have got to address this offensive line. That's all I'm thinking about right now, guys. That's all I'm thinking. I could give less about a quarterback. And I know teams don't tank. I've always said when they use the word tanking for football teams, if I was the player in that locker room, somebody said, all right, we're just going to go through the actions because we're really saving up for this quarterback we want with the first pick. They're like, you better miss me with that crap. The hell with that.
Right.
Then I'm looking for a way to get off this team. I'm not down with tanking. I'm not going to purposely go out there and lose. Oh, here, let me just miss a block on purpose, get the quarterback killed since he's not going to be here anyways. Why don't I just do that, huh? Would that work for you? No, it doesn't. It doesn't work.
I'm so glad you said that. I say that all the time. People always say, oh, you can't win any more games. Oh, tank, this, that, and the other. Players don't care about no draft pick. Players, first of all, in a locker room, don't even have a guarantee they're going to be there next year.
Exactly.
You think that they give a rip about not getting a good draft pick for the team? No, they don't care about that. They want to go out there and win. They practice all week long. They scratch, they claw, they do everything that they have to do, meetings, everything for the ultimate reward, which is the game. You think they want to go into the game and put bad film out there? They're also, competing for their jobs, whether it's with the Raiders or any other team. So they're not trying to put any bad film out there. With that being said, I am 100% in the category of going and getting your quarterback. I've been saying that for 3 years. Yeah. Do whatever you got to do to go get your quarterback. But with that being said, don't get reckless and just go get one because you're desperate for one, right? I mean, my mom used to take me to the store to go get some clothes or go get some shoes, and I wanted a certain one, but they were out. They didn't have my size. And I was so desperate. I was like, I'll take those. Well, don't get them if you don't like them. No, that's cool. And then I wouldn't wear them. How come you're not wearing those? I don't really like them. Well, then what the hell did you get them for, right? Don't go get a quarterback just because you think that you need or you need a quarterback. Go get the right one. If you see the guy that you know that fits with what you want to do and if you can build around him, you have a vision and you're going to stick with that, go get that guy. So if you're a Simpson guy, if you're a Moore guy, if you're a Sellers guy, if you're a Pavia guy, like whoever it is, but make sure it's who you want, not just, it's a quarterback, so we desperately going to go get him and go grab him. Don't make that mistake because then you're going to be in the same cycle again.
Yeah, and I'll be looking and see if Dante Moore is that guy later in November at Husky Stadium. There, guys. Got my ticket. I got my ticket so I could scout. But I wouldn't mind if they went quarterback and then they went Proctor or even Fano. So they can go quarterback, O-lineman. I don't know. But coming up in the next segment, Q and Link are going to quickly answer some of your questions and comments. So keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raider Squad Show. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS. That's sad. Software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. By uniting your employees, teams, and departments in one system, Rippling removes all the bottlenecks, busy work, and the software that you created. And right now you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/lockedonnfl. Learn more at rippling.com/lockedonnfl. That's rippling.com/lockedonnfl for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Raider Nation, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media channels. Guys, this question actually came from me from Twitter, so I'm going to ask you guys this one. Just one quick question, but I think it might be a deep one. Trey McKinney says, can you ask the guys, at what point do players lose faith in Chip Kelly's play calls? Either of you can take that one.
Oof.
At what point? There's probably some question right now. I mean, I've seen locker rooms implode when players stop, believing in coaches and vice versa. So I don't know if they're there yet. It'll be a big telltale sign to see how they come out of this bye. But I think there's got to be some grumblings in the locker room right now as we speak.
It's when you don't have success.
Yeah.
Right. When you're going out there and you're doing what the coaches want you to do and you're doing it the way the coaches want you to do it and you're not succeeding, that's when, I mean, that's just natural. That's when doubt is gonna creep in. Jamal Adams said that in the locker room after the Tennessee win. Right after that, they said, me and Paul Gutierrez asked him, well, how big was this win for you? It's Tennessee Titans, but how big was it? And he said, no, it's big because if you don't win and you don't go out there and have that success, then questions start to question, hey, is this what we're supposed to be doing? Are we doing things right? Are they leading us in the right direction? That's natural, right? That's with anything, right? I mean, your parents tell you to do something and you're like, well, why am I doing this? I'm not getting the success that you're saying I'm supposed to get. So yeah, I think that's something that if they don't start to see some success offensively and some good production, this team is averaging 14 points a game. They were averaging 18 points a game last year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So right now they're thinking, hey, man, Chip Kelly, he's the highest paid offensive coordinator in the league. He's this innovative mind. He's going to be this guy. He's, and these are my words. I was super excited about Chip Kelly being the offensive coordinator. But until you see the actual success, then you start to question it. Wait, why was everybody hyped up about this dude? What is he doing so special? The offense is worse than the offense they had last year. And the offense they had last year was terrible. So that I think you're right. I think there's definitely going to be some doubt right now until they see success. If they see success.
Definitely agree with that. And Chip Kelly, if things don't turn around for the offense, may be on the hot seat at the end of the season. And that could be a very big possibility. Thank you so much, Raider Nation, for rocking out with us on this Friday. We'll be back on Monday. Remember, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. We'll see you there. Enjoy the bye week. And if any news pops off, of course, Link and Q will have you covered as they always do. Thanks so much for rocking out with us, Raider Nation. And remember to hit that like and subscribe button. We'll be back on Monday.